Chapter 18. It comes back in clouds, in wispy images. I remember walking with Annie to Cobble Hill late in the afternoon, that first day back at school, the day Sally told me Miss Stevenson and Miss Widmer had been fired. It was raining again. I remember that, too, and there was no one at home in the little house with the garden's front or back door. No, front or back. I remember Annie looking up at the doorway saying, I can't hate it, Liza. Can you? I didn't understand what she meant, so I asked her and she said, I've been afraid that I'd hate this house, but I can't. I just love it. So much of what happened here is beautiful. And Annie kissed me then, in the rain, in the dark doorway. The front door was open when we went back on Saturday, and there were cardboard boxes all around, and suitcases, and Miss Stevenson's masterpiece from the art studio was propped up in a corner, and the cats were in carrying cases, so they wouldn't run outside in the confusion and get lost. The little house in Cobble Hill was being stripped of all the things that made it look warm and loved and lived in. Miss Widmer was out in the back garden, digging out a plant and obviously trying to look braver than she felt. Miss Stevenson, in a pair of old jeans, was packing the last of their books. How you two? She said. She even smiled when we came in. What I did then was something I'll never regret. I hugged her. We hugged each other for a very long minute, and then she pushed me away, smiling, and then said, Oh, look, it's not so bad. We're lucky. We have this place in the country. We were going to retire there anyway. I've been talking about doing some serious painting. And Ka, well, she's always wanted to have a big vegetable garden and some chickens. Chickens. And to write poetry of her own, instead of reading other people's. And now we can. Your teachers, I remember saying, you're such good teachers. Good for kids. Well, we've had more than 20 years of that. Lots of people change careers these days. But I looked at Annie, and Annie looked at me, and we both knew that what really mattered was that probably neither of those two brave and wonderful women would ever teach again. Annie, today I went outside, and in the snow, the courtyard outside my dorm, I built a replica of my childhood monster and wished you were there with me. My snow monster was pure and white and guiltless, and I looked at it, Annie, and it struck me that it can never turn black and ugly like that monster of my childhood, because what is guiltless about it is not necessarily what it does, even if sometimes what it does is bad or cowardly or foolish. It itself is okay, not evil. Can it be good and brave and wise as long as it goes on trying? Yes. And then Annie and I tore the monster down and wished again. And then, Annie, I tore the monster down and wished again that you were with me. Annie and I went out that last Saturday to get lunch for all of us. Roast beef sandwiches and Cokes. It was so much like an indoor picnic amongst the boxes and suitcases that we all tried to be cheerful. But it only worked a little. I hope everyone likes roast beef, Annie said. Miss Stevenson bit into her sandwich. Super! She waved her sandwich at us. Eat up, you two. Or do stop looking like a couple of frightened rabbits. It'll be okay. There are a lot of unfair things about in this world, and gay people certainly come in for their shares of many. But so do lots of other people, and besides, it doesn't really matter. What matters is the truth of loving, of two people finding each other. That's what's important, and don't you forget it. Annie smiled at me, and I felt her hand squeeze mine, and I think we both realized at the same time what a comfortable feeling it was to be able to sit there with other people like us holding hands. But even so, I still felt crummy inside. I know you're trying to make us feel better, I said, but to think of you not being allowed to teach. Miss Widmer stuffed a used napkin into a paper bag. We should tell them, Isabel, she said, about when we were kids. When we were kids, said Miss Stevenson, nodding. And our parents found out about us, suspected. They told us we could never see each other again. God, said Annie. Yes, well, of course we did anyway, said Miss Widmer. We did a lot of sneaking around, said Miss Stevenson, for more than a year. It was rather horrible, and we got caught a few times. Once, once almost the way you two did, was caught, very rightly reminded me when I was too angry to remind myself. So we know what it feels like, said Miss Widmer softly. How dirty it makes you feel. Hi. Makes you feel.
We did better this game, but we still lost.
Oh.
It was 31-20. We did better.
Oh.
It was 33-2.
Okay. How dirty it makes you feel at a time when you want to feel wonderful and do feel wonderful and pure and feel and full of love, full of life. Miss Stevenson got up and went to the window. Then she stopped and touched the orange cat's nose affectionately through the grating in his carrying case. Look, she said quietly, I can't lie to you and say that losing our jobs like this is easy. It isn't. But the point is that it'll be okay. We will be okay. And we want to know that you will be okay, too. Miss Widmer leaned forward. Isabel was a WAC for a while, she said. Between high school and college, someone found some of my letters to her. Talk about inquisitions. The Army's a good deal. It's a good deal better at them than Foster's, I could assure you. But you know what? Even though Isabel was discharged, and even though it looked for a time as if no college would take her, one finally did. And after a while, once she'd gotten her first teaching job and held on to it for more than a year, it hardly mattered anymore. Not in a practical way, anyhow. And Miss Widmer smiled lovingly at Miss Stevenson. The important thing is, she said, that we got through that time, too, and we're still together. Miss Stevenson patted Miss Widmer's hand, and then she came over to me and put her hands on my shoulders. I should also tell you. She glanced at Miss Widmer, who nodded. That Ka almost left me after my discharge. She went through more hell than I did, Liza. Because she blamed herself for writing those letters to me. Even though I was the one who'd left them around, she kept thinking that it was her, but she kept thinking that if she hadn't written them, if I hadn't been gay, said Miss Widmer softly, then nothing would have happened. No court-martial, no discharge. It took me a couple of years to realize, said Miss Widmer, that it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my homosexuality that had gotten Isabel discharged, and it wasn't what people wrongly made of it, and it was what people made wrongly of it. Annie's hand tightened in mine, and she whispered, See? I think, said Miss Widmer, that I had to accept that I was gay before I could realize it wasn't my fault about the discharge. She chuckled. That's why I like that quote so much. The one about the truth making one free. It does, you know, whatever that truth is. Miss Stevenson, I know she said something then, but I can't quite remember the words. I think I said something lame about their teaching jobs again, and I can sort of remember the way Miss Stevenson looked at me, as if she were trying to get it inside my mind. She put her hands over my shoulders again, still looking at me the same way, looking right into me. And she said, Miss Stevenson said, Liza, forget about our jobs. Forget that for now. This is the thing to remember. The very worst thing for Ka and me would be to be separated from each other, or to be so worn down, so guilt-ridden, and so worn apart that we couldn't stay together. Anything else. Everything else is just bad, said Miss Widmer, but no worse than bad. Bad things can always be overcome. You did nothing to us, said Miss Stevenson said gently. If you two remember nothing else from all this, said Miss Widmer, remember that, please. Don't punish yourselves for people's ignorant reactions. to what we all are. Don't let ignorance win, said Miss Stevenson. Let love. Liza pushed back her chair, her eyes going from the last part of her long, fragmentary letter up to Annie's picture, remembering, as if the snow fell outside her window, how the snow had fallen on the promenade nearly a year earlier when they'd given each other the rings. She looked at her watch. It was only 6 o'clock in California, dinner time. I'm not going to think about it, she said to herself, getting up. I've thought enough already. I'm just going to go ahead and do it. She found Annie's first letter from Berkeley and copied down the phone number for her dorm. She counted out all the change she had and borrowed 4 quarters from the girl across the hall. By the time she got to the phone booth on the first floor of her room at her dorm, her mouth was dry and her heart was racing. She had to say Annie Kenyon twice before the woman operator student who answered impersonally at the other end could understand her. And then there was Annie's voice from thousands of miles away saying, with mild curiosity, hello?
You should be. You play hard.
Waveform. 16 minutes, 57 seconds. Adjustable. Swipe up or down with one finger.
Can you bring me the incense from the bathroom?
Liza closed her eyes.
The whole thing with the stand? Thank you.
Liza closed her eyes. Annie, she said. Annie, it's Liza. A pause. Then, Liza? Liza, oh my God. Is it really you? Liza, where are you? I was just... Yes, it's me. I'm at MIT. Annie, I'm sorry I haven't written... Liza heard herself laugh. Oh, God, what a dumb thing to say. Annie, are you coming home for Christmas? A laugh, a slow, rich, full of delight laugh. Of course I am. Liza, I don't believe this. This guy I know, he's from Boston, and there's someone in New York he wants to see. He just offered to switch plane tickets with me. I told him about us a bit. He offered to switch plane tickets if I wanted to, try to see you. And I said I didn't know. I would have to think about it. Our vacation starts tomorrow. I was trying to work up the courage to call you. Liza, are you still there? Yes. Annie, sorry, I'm crying. It's just so good to hear your voice again. I know. I'm crying too. Switch tickets, please. I can go home. We can go home together. My vacation doesn't start for days. I'll meet you at Logan Airport. Just give me the flight number. Annie? Yes, Annie. Miss Whitmer was right. Remember about the truth making one free? Annie, I'm free now. I love you. I love you so much. And in a near whisper, I love you too, Liza. Oh God, I love you too. The end.